My name is Jacob, I'm 30 years old, and I've spent my entire adult life building a nest egg through hard work as a software engineer. My stepsister Miranda has always seen me as her personal ATM, despite treating me like dirt for over 15 years. Last month, she showed up at my door with an expensive new phone, acting suspiciously nice. What she didn't know was that I was already 10 steps ahead of her scheme to steal my $400,000 in savings. Before I tell you how I turned her own scheme against her, drop a comment saying where you're watching from, and subscribe if you want more stories about justice served in the most unexpected ways. My parents divorced when I was 12 years old. It wasn't particularly messy as far as divorces go, but it still left a mark on me. My mom moved across the country for a job opportunity, and I stayed with my dad in our suburban home outside of Seattle. For about 2 years, it was just the two of us figuring things out. We developed a pretty solid routine and bond during that time. Dad worked as an accountant, and I focused on school, particularly math and computer science, which I had a natural talent for. When I was 14, everything changed. Dad met Catherine, a divorced woman with a 16-year-old daughter named Miranda. After a whirlwind 6-month romance, they got married, and suddenly I had a new stepmother and stepsister. I was actually excited about it at first. I'd always wanted a sibling, and even though Miranda was older, I thought maybe we could become friends. Or at least allies in navigating our new blended family. Boy, was I wrong. From day one, Miranda made it clear that she wanted nothing to do with me. The first time we met at a get-to-know-each-other dinner, she barely acknowledged my existence, responding to my attempts at conversation with eye rolls and one-word answers. I chalked it up to her being nervous or maybe upset about the changes in her life. I decided to give her space and time to adjust. But things never improved. In fact, they got worse once we all moved in together. Miranda treated our house like a hotel, coming and going as she pleased, leaving messes everywhere for others to clean up, and speaking to me only when she needed something. My stepmother Catherine wasn't much help. She clearly favored her daughter and made excuses for all her behavior. About 3 months after our families merged, the first major incident happened. Dad and Catherine had gone out for the evening, leaving Miranda and me at home. I was in my room working on a coding project when I heard a crash downstairs. When I went to investigate, I found a shattered crystal vase that had belonged to my grandmother. Miranda stood there, phone in hand, clearly having knocked it over while taking selfies. "Dad's going to be upset," I said. "That was Grandma's vase." Miranda's expression changed instantly. "I didn't do it," she said, her eyes narrowing. "You did. You came running down the stairs and bumped into the table." "What?" "No, I didn't. I was in my room the whole time." She smirked. "It's your word against mine." "Who do you think they'll believe? I've been the perfect daughter since they got married. You've been moping around." When our parents came home, Miranda put on an Oscar-worthy performance, complete with tears, claiming I had been running in the house and knocked over the vase. Despite my protests, Dad believed her. I saw something in his eyes that day that I'd never seen before when he looked at me: doubt. It hurt more than any punishment could have. That was just the beginning. A few weeks later, $40 went missing from Catherine's purse. Miranda suggested that perhaps I had taken it, mentioning she'd noticed I had been buying more video games lately. The truth was I'd been saving my allowance for months to buy one game, but again, doubt was cast on me. The worst came during my freshman year of high school. Miranda, now a junior, spread rumors that I had cheated on a major exam. It wasn't true, but the rumor made its way to several teachers, who began watching me more closely during tests. Some of my friends started to distance themselves. Even though nothing was ever proven, the damage to my reputation was done. My social life, already challenging as a somewhat introverted tech geek, became even more difficult. Through all of this, my father never fully took my side. He tried to be diplomatic, suggesting that both kids need to get along better, or that these misunderstandings happen in blended families. But it wasn't a misunderstanding. It was deliberate sabotage, and deep down, I think he knew it but didn't want to cause waves with his new wife. Despite the unfair treatment, I developed a resilient personality. Rather than becoming bitter or retaliating, I focused on my education and technology skills. Computers made sense to me in a way that people often didn't. They followed logical rules and gave predictable outputs based on inputs. There was a comfort in that reliability that I couldn't find in my home life. As Miranda and I got older, her tactics changed. She realized that I could be useful to her. By the time I was 16 and she was 18, she had started coming to me for help with school assignments, particularly anything computer-related. I helped her. Partly because I still hoped for that sibling bond I'd initially wanted, and partly because it seemed to reduce the active hostility between us. When Miranda got into college, with a less than stellar GPA but excellent extracurriculars that Dad had paid for, she suddenly became much friendlier toward me. She'd call or text asking for help with papers or presentations. Once again I helped, spending hours formatting her documents or fixing her laptop when it inevitably crashed from the sketchy websites she visited. This established our pattern for years to come. Miranda would ignore or belittle me until she needed something, then suddenly I'd be her awesome little brother, until the favor was complete. Then it was back to being treated like an inconvenience. Still, I helped her every time, because deep down, I kept hoping that one day she'd see me as family and not just a resource to exploit. By the time I graduated high school, I had accepted that our relationship would probably always be one-sided. But I had also learned valuable lessons about human nature, manipulation, and the importance of self-reliance. Little did I know these lessons would eventually save me from Miranda's biggest betrayal yet. My hard work in high school paid off when I received a scholarship to a prestigious technical university in California. It wasn't a full ride, but it covered about 60% of my tuition. Dad helped a little, but with Miranda also in college, and constantly needing money for emergencies, his resources were stretched thin. So I took on multiple jobs to make ends meet. During my freshman year, I worked 20 hours a week at the campus IT help desk. Summers were even busier as I took on software development internships during the day and delivered pizzas at night. It was exhausting, but I was determined to graduate with minimal debt and valuable work experience. My junior year brought a turning point. One of my professors recommended me for a competitive internship at a major tech company. The internship paid surprisingly well, and I performed so effectively that they offered me a part-time position during my senior year with the promise of full-time employment after graduation. I graduated with honors, with 3 job offers on the table. I chose the company where I had interned, starting at a salary of $72,000 annually as a junior software engineer. It wasn't the highest offer, but the company had excellent growth potential and a substantial 401k matching program. That decision would prove pivotal to my financial future. From day one of my professional career, I lived well below my means. While many of my colleagues rented luxury apartments and bought new cars, I found a modest studio apartment and continued driving my 10-year-old Honda Civic. I brought lunch from home, limited eating out to once a week, and tracked every dollar spent. Some people might call it extreme, but I had a plan. I set up automatic deposits to max out my 401k contributions immediately. Beyond that, I established a strict budget that allocated 25% of my after-tax income to a high-yield savings account, another 25% to a diversified investment portfolio, and lived on the remaining 50%. As my salary increased, I maintained these percentages, increasing my savings rather than my lifestyle. Within 3 years, I had been promoted twice, bringing my salary to $105,000. By year 5, I was a senior software engineer making $130,000. My investment strategy remained conservative but effective, focusing on index funds and blue-chip stocks with reinvested dividends. The tech company I worked for also went public during my 6th year there, and the stock options I had been accumulating suddenly had real, substantial value. Between my 401k, personal investment account, stock options, and high-yield savings, I had accumulated just over $400,000 by the time I was 30. It wasn't wealthy by Silicon Valley standards, but it represented financial security and the foundation for future wealth that I had worked incredibly hard to build. Throughout this time, Miranda's life took a very different path. She graduated college with a communications degree after 5.5 years, switching majors 3 times. Her first job at a marketing firm lasted only 4 months before she quit, claiming her boss was toxic. This began a pattern of job hopping that would define her 20s. Over the next few years, Miranda cycled through at least 8 different jobs, never staying longer than 10 months at any one. Between jobs, she'd invariably called Dad for money or, increasingly, reach out to me directly. The requests started small. $300 for rent until her next paycheck, $500 for car repairs, $1,000 for a security deposit on a new apartment after being evicted from the last one. Dad continued to bail her out until he simply couldn't anymore. Catherine had developed health issues requiring expensive treatments, and their savings had dwindled. That's when Miranda began focusing her financial emergencies on me, having caught wind of my growing success through family conversations. "Jacob, you've got money just sitting there not doing anything," she'd say when I'd express hesitation about sending her cash. "I'm family. What else are you saving for that's more important than helping your sister?" The requests grew alongside my increasing salary. She needed money for a lawyer after a DUI. She needed to pay off credit card debt with alarming interest rates. She needed funds for a life-changing business opportunity that never materialized. Each time I would help, usually with a conversation about financial responsibility that she would dismiss or become defensive about. Each time, I would tell myself it was the last time. And each time, months later, my phone would ring with another crisis that only money could solve. What made it harder was the family dynamic that never seemed to change. Whenever we all got together for holidays or special occasions, my career success was mentioned briefly, if at all. But if Miranda had managed to hold a job for 6 months or had gone on a promising date, it was celebrated as if she had won a Nobel Prize. "Miranda has really been putting in the effort at her new job," Dad would say proudly. "Her boss says she has real potential." Meanwhile, my recent promotion to team lead managing 6 engineers or the successful product launch I had overseen would go unacknowledged. It was as if my success was expected, therefore unremarkable, while Miranda's smallest achievements were cause for celebration because they were so rare. Despite all this, I maintained hope that someday Miranda would mature, get her life together, and we could have an actual sibling relationship based on mutual respect rather than financial dependence. I told myself that by helping her through these rough patches, I was investing in that future relationship. Looking back, I can see how naive that was. As I approached 30, I began to consider buying a home. The real estate market in the Bay Area was prohibitively expensive, so I was looking at options in more affordable areas, possibly even working remotely. I had been researching neighborhoods, mortgage rates, and property taxes, calculating exactly how much I could afford to put down while maintaining a healthy emergency fund. It was during this period of active financial planning that Miranda came back into my life with her most elaborate scheme yet. A scheme that would test not only our relationship but everything I thought I knew about family, loyalty, and the limits of forgiveness. After not hearing from Miranda for nearly 4 months, which was unusually long given her typical cycle of crises, she suddenly called me on a Tuesday evening in October. "Jacob! It's been forever! How are you doing?" Her voice had that artificial brightness that immediately put me on alert. Miranda was never this cheerful unless she wanted something. "I'm good," I replied cautiously. "Everything okay with you?" "Better than okay. I've had some really positive changes in my life, and I've been doing a lot of thinking about family. I'd love to catch up in person. Are you free this weekend?" This was new. Usually, Miranda's requests for money came via phone or text, not in person. I agreed to meet her that Saturday, curiosity getting the better of me. When Saturday arrived, Miranda showed up at my apartment looking better than I had seen her in years. Her clothes appeared new and stylish, her hair freshly done. She carried a shopping bag from an expensive electronics store. "You look well," I said as I let her in. "New job?" "Something like that," she replied with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "But I don't want to talk about me. I want to hear about you. Dad mentioned you're thinking about buying a house?" This was definitely strange. Miranda had never shown interest in my life plans before. I gave her a vague overview of my thoughts on homeownership, while she nodded enthusiastically. "That's so smart, Jacob. You've always been the financial wizard in the family." She reached into the shopping bag. "Speaking of which, I wanted to give you something. A thank you for all the times you've helped me out." She handed me a box containing the latest model smartphone, easily worth over $1,000. "Miranda, this is too much," I said, genuinely surprised. "You didn't need to do this." "Nonsense. You're always using technology for work, and I notice your phone is like 3 years old. This one has amazing security features for banking and investments. It's perfect for someone like you who manages their finances so carefully." A small alarm bell rang in my head. How did she know what phone I was using? And since when did Miranda care about banking security features? "Plus," she continued, "I got a great deal on it through a friend who works at the store. Barely cost me anything." Another alarm bell. Miranda didn't have friends who gave her deals out of nowhere. Every gift came with strings attached in her world. But I accepted the phone, thanking her while mentally noting that I would have it thoroughly checked before using it. If Miranda noticed my hesitation, she didn't show it. For the next hour, she was uncharacteristically interested in my life and career. She asked specific questions about my daily routine, what apps I used most frequently, and whether I did most of my financial management on my phone or computer. "You know, this new phone has fantastic integration with banking apps," she mentioned casually. "You should definitely transfer all your accounts to it. The fingerprint scanner is top-notch for security." "I'll look into it," I said noncommittally. "So tell me about these positive changes in your life. You mentioned something like a new job?" Miranda vaguely described a consulting opportunity that was paying well but offered few specifics. When I asked for details, she skillfully changed the subject back to me or the new phone. "Let me help you set it up," she offered, reaching for the box. "I can get all your important apps transferred over in no time." "That's okay," I said, pulling the box back slightly. "I prefer to do it myself. Work security protocols and all that." A flash of annoyance crossed her face before she quickly recovered. "Of course, Mr. Security," she teased. "Just trying to help." Before leaving, Miranda insisted on taking a selfie with me holding the new phone, to commemorate turning over a new leaf in our relationship. She also mentioned she'd be in touch soon to see how I was liking the phone. As soon as she left, I placed the unopened box on my kitchen counter and stared at it. Something wasn't right. In 15 years, Miranda had never given me a gift that wasn't a $20 gift card for Christmas or my birthday. Now suddenly she's giving me an expensive smartphone and showing unusual interest in my financial apps? I thought about our conversation, particularly her unexplained income despite being unemployed the last time we spoke. The way she kept steering the conversation toward my banking habits. Her insistence on setting up the phone for me. My instinct screamed that something was wrong, but another part of me wondered if I was being paranoid. What if Miranda really was trying to turn over a new leaf? What if she genuinely wanted to thank me for years of financial support? Would rejecting her gift push her away just when she might be maturing? After an hour of internal debate, I decided to proceed with extreme caution. I would set up the phone but wouldn't transfer any sensitive information to it. No banking apps, no password managers, nothing financial at all. I would use it as a secondary device primarily for calls and basic apps while keeping my old phone for anything important. Over the next few days, I used the new phone minimally. I noticed some strange behavior, occasional notifications that disappeared when I tried to view them, faster than normal battery drain, and the phone sometimes feeling warm even when not in use. When I mentioned these issues casually to Miranda via text, she immediately offered to take it to her friend at the store to get it checked out. No need, I replied. I'll figure it out. Her pushiness about the phone continued. She texted almost daily asking if I was getting full use out of all its features, and specifically mentioned banking and investment apps several times. When I said I hadn't set those up yet, she seemed disappointed and emphasized how secure the phone was for financial transactions. After about 2 weeks of this strange behavior, I decided it was time to find out what was really going on with Miranda's generous gift. I needed expert help to investigate my suspicions about the phone. I contacted my friend Logan, who worked in cybersecurity at a competing tech firm. Logan and I had been friends since college, and he was one of the few people who knew the full history of my complicated relationship with Miranda. Bring the phone to my place tonight, Logan said after hearing my concerns. Don't do anything else with it until then. That evening, Logan connected the phone to his specialized equipment and began running diagnostics. After about 20 minutes of concentrated work, his expression darkened. Jacob, this phone is seriously compromised, he said, turning his monitor toward me. It's running sophisticated spyware that I've only seen used in corporate espionage or by really tech-savvy identity thieves. He pointed to various anomalies in the code. This particular software records everything: keystrokes, screenshots every 5 seconds, camera access, microphone access. It sends all data to a remote server. If you had logged into your banking on this thing, whoever installed this would have everything they need to clean you out. Can you tell who installed it? I asked. Though I already knew the answer. Logan nodded grimly. The spyware was installed 3 days before the date you said Miranda gave you the phone. It required physical access to the device. The confirmation hit me like a punch to the gut. I had always known Miranda was selfish and manipulative, but this level of calculated betrayal was shocking. She wasn't just asking for money anymore. She was actively trying to steal my life savings. What do I do now? I asked Logan. Confront her? Not yet, Logan advised. If you tip your hand too early, she'll just deny everything and possibly try another approach. Let's gather more evidence and come up with a counter-strategy. Over the next several hours, Logan and I devised a plan. Instead of confronting Miranda immediately, we would turn her scheme against her. We would create a sophisticated honeypot that would give her exactly what she wanted to see while protecting my actual assets. First, Logan helped me create a decoy banking account with a realistic-looking but completely fake transaction history. We made it appear as though I had recently consolidated all my savings and investments into this single high-yield account, showing a balance of just over $400,000. Next, we created an elaborate digital trail showing transfers from my legitimate accounts to this decoy account. We even backdated some transactions to make the history more convincing. With Logan's help, I also set up a convincing but fake banking website that mirrored my actual bank's site but would actually track anyone who tried to access it. If Miranda attempted to log in using credentials she had stolen from the spyware, we would have definitive proof of her intentions. Now comes the tricky part, Logan said. You need to deliberately enter your credentials to the decoy account on the compromised phone. Make it look natural, like you're just checking your balance or making a routine transfer. The spyware will capture it all and send it to Miranda. And then we wait. I added. And then we wait. Logan confirmed. The next day, I carefully used the compromised phone to check my finances. I logged into the decoy account, reviewed the fake balance of $400,000, and even set up a few scheduled transfers between internal accounts to make it look like active financial management. Then came the hardest part. Maintaining normal communication with Miranda while knowing what she was planning. She texted more frequently now, asking casual questions about my day or sending random memes as if we had always had that kind of relationship. Each message felt like sandpaper against my skin, but I responded naturally, giving no indication that I knew about her scheme. Miranda became increasingly friendly, suggesting lunch dates and even offering to help me research neighborhoods for my home purchase. After all, she texted, "What's the point of having a successful brother if I can't benefit from his real estate wisdom?" The irony of that statement was almost too much to bear. 2 weeks into our counter-operation, Logan confirmed that someone had attempted to access the fake banking portal using the credentials I had entered on the compromised phone. The IP address matched Miranda's home internet provider. "She took the bait," Logan said. "Now we just need to wait for her to make a move on the money." The waiting was excruciating. Every interaction with Miranda felt like a betrayal not just of me, but of what family should mean. I had always helped her, always given her the benefit of the doubt, always hoped she would change. And this was how she repaid that loyalty. At night, I would lie awake thinking about all the times I had defended Miranda to friends who questioned why I kept helping her. I had always insisted that beneath her difficult exterior was someone worth believing in. Now I had to face the possibility that I had been wrong all along. That the sister I had hoped for existed only in my imagination. Still, I stuck to the plan. Logan monitored the fake banking portal while I continued my charade with Miranda. 3 weeks after giving me the phone, she called with an invitation that signaled her endgame was approaching. "Jacob! Mom and Dad want to have a family dinner this Saturday. They specifically asked me to make sure you come. Can you make it?" Her voice had that same artificial cheerfulness from before, but now I recognized it for what it was. The sound of someone who thought they were about to win. "Wouldn't miss it," I replied, my own voice carefully modulated to hide what I knew. "Any special occasion?" "Oh, just family time," Miranda said vaguely. "See you Saturday at 6. After hanging up, I called Logan. "I think she's making her move this weekend. Can you make sure everything is in place by Saturday?" "Already done," Logan assured me. "The fake account is set up to show an unauthorized withdrawal alert if she tries to transfer the money. Your real accounts have additional security measures in place just in case. And most importantly, I've documented everything for legal purposes if it comes to that." The stage was set for the final act of Miranda's scheme. Little did she know, I had flipped her script entirely. Saturday evening arrived, and I drove to my father and stepmother's house with a mix of dread and determination. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed Miranda's car already there. A new-looking Audi that definitely hadn't been purchased on a consulting salary, unless her consulting involved activities I didn't want to know about. Dad greeted me with a warm hug. "Jacob! Good to see you, son. It's been too long." Catherine offered a more reserved hello, as was her usual style with me. The house smelled of her signature pot roast, and the dining table was set with the good china, suggesting this wasn't just a casual family dinner. Miranda emerged from the kitchen, practically bouncing with energy. She hugged me with unusual enthusiasm, whispering, "So glad you could make it, bro," in my ear. As we sat down for dinner, Miranda dominated the conversation, talking about her nebulous consulting work and dropping hints about big life changes coming soon. Dad and Catherine seemed captivated, hanging on her every word. I noticed Miranda repeatedly checking her phone under the table, smiling each time. About halfway through the meal, Miranda cleared her throat dramatically. So, I have some exciting news to share with everyone. Dad and Catherine leaned forward expectantly. I'm buying a house, Miranda announced, beaming. I've put in an offer on a beautiful 3-bedroom in Ballard, and it's been accepted. That's wonderful, honey, Catherine exclaimed. How can you afford that? Dad asked, looking both proud and confused. Those homes are going for $700,000 at least. Miranda waved her hand dismissively. My consulting business has really taken off, and I've been saving very carefully. She shot me a quick, smug glance. I've learned a lot about financial management recently. The conversation continued with Miranda describing the house in detail, talking about renovation plans and how she'd already spoken to a designer about custom cabinets. Dad and Catherine were effusive with their congratulations, praising Miranda for finally getting her life together and showing such maturity. Not once did anyone ask me about my own home buying plans, despite the fact that I had mentioned them during our last family gathering. It was classic family dynamics. Miranda's achievements, even suspicious ones, overshadowed anything I did through legitimate hard work. After dinner, while Dad and Catherine cleared the table, Miranda asked me to step outside to the back patio for some fresh air. Once we were alone, her entire demeanor changed. The bright smile vanished, replaced by a cold, calculating look I'd seen many times before when she thought she had the upper hand. So, Jacob, she said, leaning against the railing, how are you liking that phone I gave you? It's great, I replied neutrally. Very thoughtful gift. She laughed, a harsh sound nothing like her dinner table giggles. Thoughtful indeed. You know, that phone actually cost you quite a bit more than I paid for it. I raised an eyebrow, playing dumb. What do you mean? Miranda's eyes gleamed with malice. $400,000. To be exact. Give or take a few cents. I don't understand, I said, maintaining my confused act. Let me spell it out for you, genius. She sneered. That phone had special software installed on it. Software that recorded everything you did, including when you logged into your bank accounts. Did you really think I would keep coming to you for handouts when I could just take it all at once? The naked contempt in her voice was staggering. This was Miranda without pretense, showing her true face. You're saying you stole my money? I asked, my voice carefully modulated to sound shocked. Stole is such an ugly word, Miranda replied with a smirk. Let's say I liberated it from someone too stupid to protect it properly. Someone who's been flaunting his success while the rest of us struggled. But that was my entire savings, I protested, playing along. Everything I've worked for over the last decade. And now it's my down payment and renovation budget, Miranda said coldly. Don't bother trying to get it back. It's been transferred through 3 different accounts and converted to cryptocurrency. Untraceable. And you can't prove anything without admitting you've been evading taxes by hiding assets. This last part was a complete fabrication, but it showed how little Miranda actually knew about my finances despite her confidence. When did you do this? I asked, allowing a tremor in my voice. The transfer completed this morning, she said triumphantly. Just in time to close on the house next week. Perfect timing, don't you think? I shook my head slowly, then looked up at her with a question. Just out of curiosity, did you check the account name on the account you drained? Miranda's smug expression faltered slightly. What? The account name? I repeated calmly. Did you verify whose account you were actually draining? A flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. It was your primary savings account. I saw the balance when you checked it on the phone. Now it was my turn to smile. Miranda, I've known about the spyware since the day after you gave me the phone. My friend Logan works in cybersecurity. He found it immediately. Her face paled slightly, but she rallied quickly. Doesn't matter. The money is already gone. No, actually it isn't, I replied, pulling out my actual phone. Because what you saw wasn't my real account. It was a decoy we created specifically for you to find. The account you drained this morning exists only as a digital mirage. If you check your cryptocurrency wallet, I think you'll find it empty. Miranda's expression morphed from confusion to horror as she frantically pulled out her phone and checked something. The blood drained from her face. That's not possible, she whispered. Oh, it's very possible, I assured her. We also documented every attempt you made to access the fake portal, complete with your IP address and timestamps. We have logs of the spyware sending my keystrokes to a server registered in your name. Frankly, you really should have used better operational security if you were planning to commit federal wire fraud. Miranda's hands began to shake. You're lying. You're just saying this because you're angry. I shrugged and held up my real phone, showing her a screen recording Logan had prepared documenting all the evidence we had collected. Digital forensics doesn't lie, Miranda. Everything is tracked these days. The reality of her situation finally seemed to hit her. Jacob, listen, it was just a joke. I wasn't really going to keep the money. I was going to tell you about it tonight and give it all back. It was just to teach you a lesson about cybersecurity. A lesson that involved buying a $700,000 house with my money? I asked skeptically. You can't tell Mom and Dad, she pleaded, her voice dropping to a desperate whisper. They'll never forgive me. That's probably true, I agreed. Attempted theft of $400,000 is pretty hard to spin as a misunderstanding. What are you going to do? Miranda asked, real fear in her eyes for the first time. I considered her for a long moment. That depends on what happens next. But first, let's go back inside. I think it's time for a family meeting. The color completely drained from Miranda's face as she realized her carefully constructed scheme had not only failed but was about to be exposed to our parents. In that moment, she looked less like the confident manipulator of minutes before and more like a scared child caught in a terrible lie. As we walked back toward the house, I felt no satisfaction in her distress. Only a profound sadness that it had come to this. But some lies are too big to remain hidden, and some betrayals cut too deep to be brushed aside with another empty promise to do better. Back in the living room, Dad and Catherine were sitting on the couch, looking through photos of the house Miranda claimed to be buying. They looked up with smiles that quickly faded when they saw our expressions. What's wrong? Dad asked, looking between us. Miranda immediately launched into damage control. Nothing. Jacob's just being dramatic about some stupid phone issue. I took a deep breath. Actually, there's something important you both need to hear. Before Miranda could interrupt, I pulled out my phone and played the recording of our conversation on the patio, where she explicitly admitted to installing spyware on the phone she gave me and attempting to steal my entire savings. The recording was clear and damning. Miranda's voice filled the room, cold and calculating as she described how she had liberated my money from someone too stupid to protect it properly. As the recording played, Dad's face went from confusion to shock to anger. Catherine's hand covered her mouth, her eyes wide with disbelief. Miranda stood frozen, like a statue of pure panic. When the recording ended, the silence was deafening. Finally, Dad spoke, his voice strained. Miranda, tell me this is some kind of sick joke. Miranda's survival instincts kicked in. He's manipulating the recording. I never said those things. Jacob has always been jealous of me, and now he's trying to turn you against me because I'm finally successful. Her desperate lie hung in the air for a moment before I responded calmly. I have much more evidence. I pulled up the documentation Logan had prepared, showing timestamps, IP addresses, and server logs. My friend who works in cybersecurity helped me gather all of this. It's conclusive and would stand up in court. Court? Catherine gasped, finally finding her voice. Jacob. Surely you wouldn't press charges against your own sister? Stepsister. Miranda corrected automatically, then immediately looked like she regretted it. Dad stood up, his face ashen. Miranda. Is this true? Did you really try to steal Jacob's savings? Miranda's eyes darted around the room like a cornered animal. Then, in a last desperate attempt, she burst into tears. I needed the money. Do you know how hard it's been watching Jacob succeed at everything while I struggle? He has hundreds of thousands just sitting there while I can barely make rent. It's not fair. Her admission, wrapped in self-pity though it was, silenced any remaining doubts. Dad sank back onto the couch, looking suddenly older. How long has this been going on? He asked quietly. This resentment? I decided it was time for full transparency. Since the beginning. I said. Remember the vase that got broken when we were teenagers? Miranda broke it and blamed me. The money that went missing from Catherine's purse? That was Miranda too. The rumors at school about me cheating? All Miranda. That's ancient history. Miranda protested. You can't prove any of that now. You're right, I can't. I acknowledged. But I kept records of other things. Every time you called me for money over the last 8 years. Every promise to pay it back that never materialized. Every story about what the money was for that later turned out to be a lie. I showed them a spreadsheet on my phone. Altogether, excluding this latest attempt, you've taken over $37,000 from me, Miranda. Money that was given in good faith because you were family. Catherine turned to Miranda, her expression hardening. Is this how we raised you? To steal and lie? You've always favored him, Miranda shouted, pointing at me. Ever since Dad married you. It's been Jacob this and Jacob that. Per Jacob whose mom moved away. Perfect Jacob with his perfect grades and perfect job. That's not true, Dad said firmly. We've always been far more lenient with you than with Jacob. We've overlooked your mistakes, paid your debts, celebrated your smallest accomplishments while taking Jacob's success for granted. His words, acknowledging what I had felt for years, hit me like a physical force. I had never expected Dad to see it, let alone say it out loud. We failed you both, Dad continued, looking between us. We failed to create a real family. We failed to teach you respect and responsibility, Miranda. And we failed to appreciate your consistency and hard work, Jacob. Miranda wasn't interested in this moment of reckoning. So what happens now? She demanded. Are you going to call the police? Have me arrested? Ruin my life over a mistake? A mistake is forgetting to return a phone call, I replied evenly. What you did was a federal crime that could carry a prison sentence of up to 20 years. It was premeditated, sophisticated, and would have devastated me financially if it had succeeded. The color drained from Miranda's face again. 20 years? Dad looked at me intently. What do you want to do, Jacob? It was a profound moment. For perhaps the first time, Dad was fully acknowledging my autonomy and judgment. He wasn't telling me what to do or mediating between Miranda and me. He was asking what I thought was right. I don't want to see Miranda in prison, I said after a moment of consideration. But this can't be swept under the rug with an apology and a promise to do better. Those haven't worked for the past 15 years. I turned to Miranda. Here's what's going to happen. First, you're going to get professional help. Real therapy, not just a few sessions to appease us. Second, you're going to make a formal, written apology acknowledging everything you've done. Not just this latest scheme. Third, you're going to perform 200 hours of community service working with victims of financial fraud. Fourth, you'll have no access to family funds until you've demonstrated real change. And if I refuse? Miranda challenged, though her voice lacked conviction. Then I'll press charges and let the legal system decide your consequences, I said simply. This isn't a negotiation. Dad nodded slowly. Those terms are more than fair, given the circumstances. Catherine seemed less certain. Isn't there a way to handle this more privately? Keep it in the family? We've been keeping Miranda's behavior in the family for 15 years. I pointed out. It's only escalated. At some point, real consequences have to apply. I can't afford therapy, Miranda protested. Or to take time off work for community service. You don't have a real job. I reminded her. Your consulting business was a fiction to explain the money you thought you were about to steal from me. And as for therapy costs, I'll cover those because I genuinely want you to get better. Miranda looked around the room, seeing no allies. Fine, she said bitterly. It's not like I have a choice. You've always had choices, Miranda, Dad said quietly. You've just consistently made the wrong ones. The family meeting continued late into the night. There were more tears, accusations, and painful revelations. Miranda alternated between defiance, self-pity, and occasional glimpses of genuine remorse. Dad and Catherine gradually came to terms with their role in enabling Miranda's behavior over the years. I shared more about how the family dynamic had affected me, speaking truths I had held back for over a decade. By the time I left, Miranda had agreed to my terms, though with obvious reluctance. Dad had promised to help ensure she followed through, this time without enabling her evasions. Catherine had been quieter, clearly struggling to reconcile the daughter she thought she had with the person Miranda had revealed herself to be. As I drove home that night, I felt an odd mixture of grief and relief. A family myth had been shattered, but perhaps something more honest could eventually take its place. The road ahead would be difficult for all of us, but especially for Miranda, who would have to rebuild not only our trust but her entire self-concept. I wondered if she was capable of that kind of change. I wondered if our family was strong enough to weather this storm. Most of all, I wondered if I had done the right thing by forcing this confrontation rather than simply walking away. Time would tell. For now, all I could do was hold firm to the boundaries I had finally established and hope that somehow, from the ashes of this betrayal, something better might eventually emerge. 1 year later, I sat in a coffee shop waiting for Miranda to arrive. We had established a monthly check-in that had started as part of her accountability process, but had gradually evolved into something resembling a normal sibling relationship. Not close, not yet, but civil and occasionally even pleasant. Miranda entered, looking different than she had a year ago. The flashy clothes and excessive makeup were gone, replaced by a simpler, more authentic style. She carried herself differently too, with less aggressive defensiveness and more genuine confidence. Sorry I'm late, she said, sliding into the chair across from me. Therapy ran long today. How's that going? I asked, pushing a coffee toward her. I had remembered how she liked it. Challenging, she admitted. We're digging into some childhood stuff that isn't comfortable. But Dr. Winters says uncomfortable is where the growth happens. I nodded. That matches my experience. Yes, I had started therapy too. The aftermath of Miranda's betrayal had forced me to examine my own patterns, particularly my tendency to help others at the expense of my own well-being and my difficulty setting boundaries with family. How are Mom and Dad? I asked. I still saw them monthly for dinner, but Miranda's relationship with them had been more complicated to rebuild. Better, she said. Dad's really trying. He asks questions about therapy and actually listens to the answers. Mom's still struggling a bit. I think she feels like my issues reflect on her parenting. They're both doing their own work, I observed. That counts for a lot. It was true. The family earthquake had prompted changes for everyone. Dad had joined a support group for parents of adult children with behavioral issues. Catherine had started therapy to address her enabling tendencies. They were learning, sometimes painfully, how to relate to both of us as adults rather than as extensions of themselves. I finished my community service hours last week, Miranda mentioned, sipping her coffee. The director asked if I'd stay on as a volunteer. They need people who understand financial fraud from, well, all angles. I raised an eyebrow. Are you going to do it? She nodded. I think so. It's been unexpectedly meaningful. Some of the victims' stories really got to me. This was new. Miranda showing empathy for others in a way that wasn't performative or calculated for personal gain. Small steps, but significant ones. How's the new job? I asked. After giving up the fiction of her consulting business, Miranda had struggled to find employment with her spotty work history. Eventually, she'd taken an entry-level position at a nonprofit that helped low-income families with financial literacy. The irony wasn't lost on any of us, but it seemed to be a good fit. It's challenging in the best way, she replied. I'm learning so much, and it feels good to actually help people instead of, well, instead of manipulating them. She didn't need to say it. I've been meaning to tell you, she continued, looking slightly uncomfortable. I've started saving to pay you back. It's not much yet, just $50 each paycheck. But I'm committed to repaying everything eventually. I hadn't expected this. Repayment hadn't been part of our agreement. Miranda, you don't have to. Yes, I do, she interrupted firmly. Not because you're demanding it, but because I need to. For me. For my recovery. Dr. Winters calls it making living amends. I nodded slowly, respecting her decision. I understand. We talked for another hour, catching up on work, friends, and family news. There were still awkward moments and old patterns that occasionally surfaced. But they no longer dominated our interaction. We were learning a new way to be siblings, one conversation at a time. As Miranda prepared to leave, she paused. Jacob, I never properly thanked you. For what? For not pressing charges. For giving me a chance to change instead of just writing me off. You had every right to, after what I did. I considered this carefully before responding. I didn't do it just for you. I did it for me too. Sending you to prison wouldn't have healed anything. It might have felt like justice in the moment, but it wouldn't have addressed the real issues. Miranda nodded. Still. Thank you? After she left, I remained at the table, reflecting on the past year and the lessons it had taught me. I had learned the difference between helping and enabling, a distinction I'd never fully understood before. Helping empowers someone to solve their own problems. Enabling shields them from the consequences necessary for growth. I had learned to trust my instincts. That uneasy feeling I'd had about Miranda's gift hadn't been paranoia. It had been my subconscious recognizing patterns my conscious mind wanted to ignore. That intuition had saved me from financial ruin. I had learned how childhood patterns can echo through adult relationships if left unexamined. Miranda's resentment and my people-pleasing weren't just personality quirks. They were coping mechanisms developed in our blended family dynamic. Understanding this didn't excuse harmful behavior but provided context that made change possible. Perhaps most importantly, I had learned that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's necessary for healthy relationships. By always being available, always helping, always forgiving without accountability. I hadn't been doing Miranda any favors. I had been participating in a dysfunctional dance that kept us both stuck in harmful patterns. The betrayal had been painful, even traumatic. But it had also been the catalyst for change that was long overdue. Our family would never be a Hallmark card ideal, but it was becoming something more honest, more authentic, and ultimately healthier. In my professional life, I had channeled this new understanding into positive change as well. I had started a volunteer program teaching financial literacy and online safety to vulnerable populations. The experience of almost losing my savings had shown me how devastating financial fraud could be, particularly for those with fewer resources and support systems than I had. As I finished my coffee and prepared to leave, I realized that in a strange way, Miranda's betrayal had been a gift. Not one I would have chosen, certainly. but one that had forced growth I might have avoided otherwise. The freedom that comes from breaking destructive family patterns was worth more than the $400,000 that had been at stake. Family relationships are complicated. They can be sources of our deepest wounds and our greatest healing. The journey with Miranda wasn't over. Real change takes time, consistency, and commitment. But for perhaps the first time, I was cautiously optimistic that we were moving in the right direction. Not because I was naively hoping for a miracle transformation, but because we were all doing the difficult, unglamorous work of examining patterns, setting boundaries, and choosing healthier ways to relate to each other. The greatest gift from difficult people is sometimes the strength we find in ourselves when dealing with them. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who took advantage of your generosity? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more real-life stories about navigating complicated relationships. And remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to stop protecting them from the consequences of their actions. Thank you for listening, and I wish you strength and clarity in your own family journeys.